Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's get this started. Thank you everyone for joining us for the star of the show, Embracing Augmented Reality for Online Special Collections Exhibitions. Today, our panelists come from the Fashion Institute of Technology, two folks here in person, and one will be joining by a pre-recorded presentation. Miyo Sandlin is the Research and Instructional Services Librarian at FIT. She's previously worked at St. Francis College, the Art Institute of Washington, and the Library of Congress. She received her MLS from the University of Maryland and her BA in history from Vassar. And Joseph Anderson is an assistant professor and the digital initiatives librarian at FIT. He holds an MLS from Dominican University. He's presented widely, offered many workshops, and recently co-wrote with Miyo the article called Fashion for All, Using Augmented Reality to Explore Digital Archives, which is published in Online Searcher this year. And joining via video, Karen Trivette, also of FAT, is the Associate Professor and Head of Special Collections and College Archives. She has an MLS from the University of Albany and is pursuing her PhD of Archival Sciences at Europeana University in Slovenia. She's published widely and presents both nationally and internationally. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. Please do mute yourself and keep yourself muted through the duration of the presentation. At the end, if you'd like to speak a question aloud, please raise your hand and I'll call on you in order. You can also put your questions in the chat as we go so that we have some questions that are ready immediately when we go to the Q&A. And with that, I'm just going to turn it over.
Okay. Thank you for that intro. Good afternoon. My name is Miyo Sandlin. We are all librarians at the Fashion Institute of Technology, and today we're going to be talking about an online exhibit accompanied by an augmented reality experience. This presentation is going to be in 3 parts, and we're each going to take turns talking about our role in bringing those to life. First, I just want to share the URL for the fitting room with you. That's fittingroom.fitnyc.edu. And if you would like to, feel free to visit the fitting room during a presentation, take selfies and share them using hashtag #SparkFittingRoom. And we will share them at the end if anyone has posted any. All right, so first up, I'm going to share Karen's pre-recorded video. Take it away, Karen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Trivette, Associate Professor and Head of Special Collections and College Archives, a unit in the Gladys Marcus Library at the Fashion Institute of Technology, SUNY. It is my absolute pleasure to address you today along with 2 of my librarian faculty colleagues for SUNYLA 2021. I'd like to begin by defining the unit and discussing a very important operational function, that being outreach. Special collections and college archives can be defined as 4 physical and intellectual domains. Those would be rare books and periodicals, manuscript collections, the college archives, and digital and audiovisual assets. It's also defined by its staff. We are 4 personnel in total, 1 faculty member, that's me, and 3 staff. Each of them has a domain of responsibility. We are 7,100 square feet of space. It is a state-of-the-art environment thanks to a nearly $4 million renovation that concluded 4 years ago.
In this vault, we store our nearly 500 distinct and unique manuscript collections. These are mostly comprised of circa 500,000 original fashion sketches and illustrations. One collection is the Abraham Beller and Company Fashion Sketch Collection. It alone is comprised of nearly 9,000 sketches of women's cloak and suit designs. These sketches span the years 1915 to 1929 and cover fashions legitimately copied from Paris couture houses. This would include the couture house of Gabrielle Coco Chanel. It is from these sketches that librarian faculty colleagues have developed an exciting augmented reality experience that we are excited to share with you today.
We also have nearly 500 manuscript collections. These date back to 1590. We have 12,000 monographs dating back to 1680, Over 700 periodicals titles which date back to the 1790s. We have more than 800 scrapbooks across 61 scrapbook collections. And these are primarily the scrapbooks of department stores. We have 500 individual shoe prototypes, some in pairs, and these came along with 30,000 sketches of shoe designs by one creator. We also have 200 linear feet of institutional archives and nearly 8 terabytes of digital assets into which we hope to migrate circa 5,000 VHS tapes, mostly of US and European fashion runway shows. Whether operating on campus or remotely, the mission of SPARC remains the same: to foster original research across and beyond the FIT community by acquiring, preserving, and providing universal access to primary research materials, including college archival records. Unit materials include physical, digital, and three-dimensional examples. All acquisitions support one or more curricula offered at FIT. Our user community is as diverse as the content on our shelves, and all are welcome. In an effort to fulfill our mission to provide access, including innovative outreach initiatives, SPARC launched SPARC Digital several years ago in using the Omeka utility. According to its creators, Omeka is a Swahili word meaning to display or lay out wares, to speak out, to spread out, to unpack. SPARC Digital is an online platform offered by the unit to showcase the rare and unique materials from our collections that have been digitized. Our goal is to make our collections more widely available online, not only to the FIT community, but also to the general public. This is a proxy-free service to anyone with an internet connection. SPARC Digital features images from dozens of our collections in the form of original fashion sketches, photographs, illustrations, and historic fashion plates. These collections contain many fun examples of women's wear, men's wear, children's wear, millinery, footwear, jewelry, and costume created between the 18th and 20th centuries. A very exciting feature of SPARC Digital is its exhibits module. We're slowly populating this module with content across centuries of creation. An original endeavor to plan and install a physical exhibition on the FIT campus was sidelined with the onset of the pandemic. So in response, I planned and coordinated an online exhibition that incorporated still and dynamic content, as well as augmented reality. Prior to the pandemic, FIT SPARC staff already employed an Omeka-supported online digital content delivery space. With the postponement of the aforementioned physical exhibition, I decided to push Omeka's limits with the installation of the exhibition entitled Max Meyer and A. Beller and Company, Interpreting a Hidden History of New York City's Garment District. From the 27th February through the 1st of December 2020, online exhibition planners, designers, and contributors otherwise met on a weekly basis to consider all aspects of what the show should deliver to visitors. This exhaustive exhibition was launched on the 7th of December 2020. But what do I mean by exhaustive? Well, with the aid of faculty, librarian colleagues, I requested as much performance as technology at our disposal would allow for a complete online exhibition experience, and that which Omeka could support. As one navigates the exhibition, one finds an immersive online environment enhanced with augmented reality. It also will eventually offer a 3D component as well. Now again, reflecting on Spark's mission to reach researcher audiences in innovative ways, I am thrilled to introduce to you the fitting room. My colleague Professor Sandlin will go in depth on this aspect. The fitting room is an augmented reality or AR experience that allows visitors to virtually try on parts of rare and even unique holdings from the digital surrogates of archival material my staff and I care for. The landing page is seen here. Built using the Zappar Studio platform, this AR experience helps to bring historical source material nearly to life. Visitors can virtually try on accessories, such as hats, scarves, earrings, which are featured in FIT Spark original fashion sketches and illustrations by legendary artists, some of which you see here. I am going to stop sharing, and thank you for your attention. And now I will turn it over to my colleagues for the rest of the star of the show. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Karen, for that that backstory on the collections and the exhibit. Always nice to get a, it's always a treat to get a tour of special collections, even if it's virtual. All right. So yeah, oh, not yet. As you guys saw, as you guys saw, one of the items that Karen was holding up was the actual original hand-drawn sketch that you see over here on your left. In front of you here is the digitized version that appears in Spark Digital. Karen showed you a peek at the interface of the fitting room. Now I'm going to show you how the AR experience actually works. And I'm going to use this sketch as an example. Okay, so yeah, you can see that's one way to experience it is you can pop up a QR code from the website, the fitting room, and then you can scan it with your phone, and then you can try on the hat virtually in your smartphone. All right, so let's take a step back, and I just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page because I know some of you probably have a lot of experience with augmented reality. Some of you maybe have not used it before. The Wikipedia definition that I'm using today defines it as an interactive experience of a real-world environment enhanced by computer-generated perceptual information. So two of the more famous examples I put up here. The one on the left is the Pokemon Go game that came out in 2016. This isn't the first AR game as far as I'm aware, but it was probably one of the most popular, especially like on a global scale. And basically, you know, you're experiencing the real world through your camera. You're looking at the world around you, the streets, the sidewalks. And then depending on where you are, pocket monsters will appear on the screen and you have to catch them. And I remember there was a period of time where you could go to like Central Park or Union Square and you would just like see people with their phones. Sorry, my flashlight's on. And you knew exactly what they were doing. They were out in groups catching Pokemon. It was a unique cultural moment. On the right, I think this is one of the Kardashians here modeling the flower crown, which is a Snapchat lens. They call them lenses, not filters, but they're the same thing. And so in this example, the real world environment is your face or your body, and then layering over it is the floral crown accessory. Or in other cases, hats, sunglasses, makeup, hair color, background. The list goes on and on. So these are two really popular examples of what's going on with AR and how it's very commonly used. So I had used AR in the past, but I had always considered myself just a user. It wasn't until I attended a workshop at the FIT faculty research space where I started to become a maker. So the faculty research space is an on-campus lab space. It's intended to foster research and development, as well as help faculty incorporate technology and innovation into their work. So I attended a 1-hour workshop on augmented reality, and this is where I was introduced to the Zappar platform. And this is where we built our first filter together. So a little bit about the Zappar platform. So Zappar's name comes from the fact that it is an app using AR that lets you zap stuff. And I think by zap, they mean like scan with your phone. So it's an augmented reality platform that provides a software development kit, also known as an SDK, that allows customers to create their own AR projects. So not every company does this. Some companies want to create the app for you. Zappar is one of the companies that gives you the software to make the filter or the AR experience yourself. And Zappar Studio is a product that we subscribe to that allows us to create and publish these face filters. And let me give you a preview of what the backend looks like. So this is Zappar Studio. I think it's somewhat similar to like Photoshop or Illustrator, like it has a preview workspace window in the middle. And then on the sides and the bottom, you have panels that kind of show, your files, your settings, your properties. And you can also kind of see how our filter is built. It's very simple. I've just Photoshopped the original sketch and just left the accessory and placed it on the 3D model that comes as part of the software suite. The Zappar software definitely, I think, has like a pretty short learning curve. I built my first filter on my own in about an hour. And then it has a pretty robust online community. There's message boards where people can kind of talk and share about what projects they're working on. And sometimes people from the Zappar company, the employees themselves will come on and give advice or support. It's a nice online community. So why face filters? Zappar does a lot of stuff. They don't just do face filters, but we settled on face filters for a couple reasons. So the first being that they are very popular already on Instagram and Snapchat, especially among 18 to 25-year-olds, which just happens to be, a majority of our student body. By 2021, it's predicted there will be about 2 billion mobile AR users globally. So as you can see, this already is pretty popular. I think it's past like the early adoption phase. So there's, there's an interest in reaching people where they already are and technology that they're already using. Another reason is that I think the face filters make the AR technology fun. And this brings me to my next point, is that making it fun will hopefully incentivize students to download the app. So this was an issue early on. I guess about 2 years ago, you needed to actually download the Zappar app onto your phone to even use the filters. So we saw that as kind of like a stumbling block. Is someone walking by actually going to take the time to download a whole app before actually, scanning it? That seems like extra step that maybe people won't take. However, this has no longer become necessary. Joseph is going to talk a little bit about the web AR technology and how that's opened up new possibilities for face filters and AR technology. But yeah, in the beginning, we saw it as a challenge that we needed to kind of think about. Also, face filters makes use of what is unique to our collection. So we have all this amazing visual stuff, archival fashion drawings and illustrations. We just happened to have a lot of hats, a lot of accessories. And we had talked early on about doing clothing or doing shoes. But the thing about the smartphone is, you can only hold it like so far away from yourself. You're really most of the time capturing your face and your upper body. So this just kind of lent itself naturally to doing hats and anything that's kind of like in this area. Also, face filters just allows people to interact with archival material in a way that they can't normally. As you saw, Spark is closed off, it's appointment only. I think they do their best to make things accessible, but one of the first rules of archives is to touch stuff as little as possible for the sake of preservation. So the idea of having a filter where you could put something on your body, even if it was virtual, was a very interesting concept in, making things more accessible to more people. All right, so things that we had to think about along the way. So one of the first challenges early on was selecting hats from our collection, which numbers in the thousands, which was hard. We have a lot of great stuff in our archives. So, I tried to pick things that were unique or colorful or maybe had some famous names on it. But also one of the ways I weeded out which ones not to use was through seeing which things don't work well. So here's an example of you'll see the sketch on the right. This is a really lovely hat coat ensemble from the 1920s. I thought it had like a cute flapper quality to it. But the problem is that this is drawn and sketched from the side. So, you know, I'm not a 3D modeler. I can't make a hat where one doesn't exist. I had to use what was there. So I had to use the hat from the side view. And there's a couple of problems with side view. First of all, the face tracking technology uses your eyes to kind of like triangulate, you know, where the hat's going to be in relation to the rest of your head. So when you have something from the side view and you can't see the eyes, it starts jumping around. It becomes less accurate. Another issue is that I think most people don't want a selfie from the side of their head like this. I don't know. I just don't think that's as popular. And another issue is that, as you can see, in order to get the hat to work at all, I had to take the picture like this, which means I can't actually see what I'm doing when I'm taking the picture. So like if you can't see what you're doing when you're using the thing, I feel like right away that's not something that's going to work. So yeah, that's an example of a hat that didn't work. Some other things that we had to think about. So in the beginning, we had a lot of ideas for buttons. So I had the idea, you know, we want this to be an educational tool. We want this to be a pathway to open up the collections for people. We want to connect them to the item or the collection or the archive. So let's have a button. Maybe it goes to the item. Maybe it goes to Spark Digital. Maybe we can put text in the back that explains what the hat is and where it's from. But we early on also decided, like, you know, this is a lot of information. It's kind of cluttering the interface. It's a smartphone. It's not that much space to begin with. Do people really want that there? You know, what's the balance between being educational and fun? I sort of thought eventually that there was, you know, maybe a value to having an unmediated experience, just you and the hat, not all this, you know, extra text. But also, and then Joseph is going to talk about this later in his part, we figured out other ways to incorporate the metadata and links to the original when we shifted how we ended up doing the online exhibition. So yeah, we ended up getting rid of a lot of the buttons. The only one that we actually kept is this camera button over here on the left. Because we did want people to take screenshots. We thought that would be a big part of the experience. Now, most people know how to take screenshots on their phone. You just push the buttons on the side. But this isn't necessarily something that everybody can do. Some people, you know, may have issues with accessibility, or some people just don't know how to do it or don't know how to do it well or are uncomfortable with it. Most user interfaces have something on the screen, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, that lets you do it with a tap. So we decided to incorporate the same thing. We added a little camera button that we actually got to disappear when you take the photo. So it's not going to be on your screen when you take it. The only reason it's here is for demonstration purposes. And that did take a little bit of programming. But yeah, that's the only button that ended up staying there. All right, so makeup was also another thing that we thought would be cool. A lot of the sketches had fun vintage makeup that sort of looked old-fashioned and cool. And we were like, oh, that would be another fun element to add. But as you can see, the early results went from bad to worse. So yeah, this, you know, didn't go very well. As you can see, not only is it terrifying, but this filter would not really be racially inclusive, right? It's not going to work across all skin tones. So we kind of abandoned this approach early on. I have some scary, fun photos from it. And the only thing that we actually ended up keeping from makeup was lipstick. And this was actually really, really time consuming. It had to be drawn by hand. So makeup is still kind of a work in progress. We didn't get very far on that. But yeah, some lessons learned along the way. And then things that were actually really easy to incorporate were jewelry, as you can see from this 1950s suit. And I guess veils actually kind of worked pretty well. And then, as you can see on the right, from this alpaca coat and hat from 1805, coats and scarves actually worked pretty well. As long as you cut up the coat from the waist up, it seems to work pretty well in the filter. All right, so as you can see, I had a lot of fun working on this project, but just to talk a little bit about the timeline, I'd say I started messing around with it in 2019, probably winter. So this is a really early filter from December 2019. And like I said, it was pretty easy to put together my first filter. It took about an hour. But then my question was, now what? What do I do next? So the first thing I did was I approached Karen. It's Karen's collection, so I wanted to be sure that she was cool with, this new venture that I was proposing. And I also wanted to see if she had any ideas for directions to go in. Like I said, Spark Digital and Spark itself has a huge collection. There's a lot of different directions you could go in. And that's when Karen told me about the Meyer Beller exhibit that she was planning. And she said, I love this idea. And I think it would be really great for this online exhibition we're planning. So maybe we could start with that as a jumping off point. So that was really helpful because right away we could narrow it down to one collection. And then the next person I approached was Joseph. So, FIT is a big place. There's a lot of departments. There's a lot of things that you have to get ready before you place it to students and faculty and the public. And I really felt like I needed help to figure out how to take this large scale, how to publish, market, promote a project like this. And those are all things that Joseph has a lot of experience with because as the digital initiatives librarian, that's already kind of in his wheelhouse and his job description. So Joseph was the next person to come on board. And this is a good jumping off point to switch over to Joseph and his part of the presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna share my screen. Want to do this. Okay, so now you should be seeing a slide that just says the fitting room on it. Okay, so like as Miyo was saying, my name is Joseph Anderson, and I'm the Digital Initiatives Librarian at FIT. And again, like she was saying, she brought me on the project after she had already conceived of the meat of the idea and was looking for help with logistics and the actual launch of it. So that's what I'm going to discuss and then get into actually building the fitting room platform itself. Okay, so just a bit of background, and I think this has already kind of been hinted at as we were going along, that this project was initially conceived December 2019, so about 4 or 5 months before the United States onset of the pandemic. And so before that happened, we were thinking about how do we launch this sort of AR experience. And the first thing that came to mind, or maybe the second, was this idea that we would print all these high resolution posters of the fashion sketches, include QR codes with them that would launch the experience, and we would hang all these these posters all around the campus and the library. And so the idea would be that people are walking around, they see this poster and they go, oh, what's this about? And they see the QR code and they scan it and they get this surprise of this image of themselves wearing this hat or necklace or scarf. And so I was really excited about that idea because as the digital initiatives librarian, most of the projects that I worked on were website launches, in which those projects are entirely just done all digitally and over the internet. And so there's not really a sort of in-person component to them. And so I was really really excited about this because it had this degree of sort of chance and serendipity of people just kind of happening to see this thing, so that was our plan. But then again, that wasn't to be. In late February of 2020, we created a mock-up of the posters that we were going to print, and you can see one here on the slide. It has the slogan, "Try on a piece of history," and then the QR code and the fitting room, the name of the sort of the project at that point. And so, but then in March 2020, just as we were about to send these posters to the printers, everything shut down. So we had to put the project on hold, obviously. But then as we and the rest in a lot of the world moved to an all remote environment, we initially were okay, we'll do this when we go back next semester or whatever. No one had any sort of idea when we would eventually go back to campus. But in the meantime, as we started working remotely, we started to realize how integral the webcam had become in everyone's life. And as you can see, we're all using webcams right now. And before March 2020, you maybe used a webcam once a year for some like online, workshop that you attended, but they were really not a sort of part of people's lives in the way they are now, and then the way they started to become in April of 2020. And so when we saw that happening, we started to think like, maybe there's a different way we can roll this out. Maybe it doesn't need to be in person. Maybe it doesn't need to be based off this like poster concept. And so we did some research and to see what like Zappar had to offer. And that's when we saw they had these two things called Web AR and deep links. And so the Web AR, it allows you to launch an AR experience, not from a separate app that you would need to download onto your phone, but directly in a web browser. So this could be a web browser that's on your phone, or it could be a web browser that's on your desktop or your laptop. And then on top of that, the deep link, the function of that is that you can launch a AR experience not with a special sort of QR code or code that's unique to a particular app, but you can launch it with a URL. So it can just like give you a link and you can launch an AR experience. And so that's when we started to think like, maybe we can do this whole fitting room thing. Like the experience could be done on your desktop or your laptop. It didn't need to like be dependent entirely on a phone. And so initially that seemed like a really weird idea because like then, like a year ago, but for most of like what people think of AR, it's like so intrinsically linked to the smartphone. Like everything about AR is like smartphone, like that's what made AR happen, was the invention of the smartphone. But now with like so many people dependent on webcams, it suddenly didn't seem too far-fetched that you could be launching an AR experience from your desktop computer. And so that's how the fitting room became a website rather than a series of posters. Go to the next slide. And so here is the actual fitting room website / platform. And I will quickly demonstrate it. And so let's see how it goes. So this is the platform. As you can see right now, there's about a little more than a dozen sketches on here. And it's very straightforward. You have a sketch and you have a few buttons that will launch the experience. So you can either hit play, which will launch the experience directly in your browser, or you can also hit this QR code, which will make a QR code pop up. And so like if you were using a computer that didn't have a webcam, you could pull out your phone and scan this and it'll launch the experience on your phone. And so here, I'll demonstrate this one. This one's a really fun one. This like reminds me of something like out of, I don't know, Hollywood Boulevard or Sunset Boulevard is the movie. But anyhow, here it is. So when you press the play button, it takes you to Zappar, and then you press launch to launch the experience, and then you're gonna see me. And then here it is, the me with the filter. It works better if you don't see the bottom, my torso. So yeah, that's how it works. It's pretty simple and straightforward. So I'll go back, and the last thing that you can do on the site, which is a very sort of helpful thing, and Miyo was talking about how originally we were trying to figure out how to like make this experience educational, like within the smartphone itself, and we were having trouble like fitting it all there. But now we can just like have a button that pops up and it gives you information about the sketch, and then it links out to Spark Digital, where you can see the sketch itself and you can see all the metadata, you can see like related sketches and fun stuff like that. So it was really nice how that came together. Yeah, so that's the fitting room platform, and it's been working very well. So next, I'm going to talk about actually developing this sort of platform. Once we had the idea for like that we would do this that we would do it as a website rather than posters, it like all sort of like it was like one of those synergy things where it's like, oh, this is all coming together really quickly. So we like had the site up within like a week after we had that idea. And also because in terms of like an actual like website or a web project, it's really simple and it doesn't require any sort of dynamic functionality. And because of this, we chose to use GitHub Pages and Jekyll to develop and host the site. So you might be familiar with GitHub, or know at least that GitHub is something that is used by programmers and coders to manage and maintain code for projects. But an additional like sub-function of GitHub is that you can use it to host free web pages. And so this initially started out as like, if you wanted to have a web page that was like accompanying your code for a project, you could have like a web page there. But now you can use GitHub pages for like any web page you would want to host. It doesn't have to be related to code specifically. So with GitHub pages, what you can do is you can actually just like write out the HTML code and like upload it, and then it'll like be on the web. Or you can use it with this companion application called Jekyll. And so I'm not going to like get into too much of the details of like how Jekyll works or what it is, but basically it's a way that you can sort of create like a dynamic website in a very static way without the same amount of overhead you would need. So like something like WordPress like will create like a very dynamic website, but it requires like a server that has PHP on it so you can like sort of run WordPress. But you can do something similar with Jekyll without needing that server. So that's like the appeal of it. It's really good for like a sort of a small, straightforward project. So for instance, like a really cool thing that you can do with Jekyll is, and what we're doing for this project is we keep all the data for all of the AR experiences in a spreadsheet, and it's in Google Drive, and myself and Miyo have access to it, and we just like add stuff to the Google spreadsheet. And so what happens with Jekyll is it takes that spreadsheet, and then it takes like the code that you've written for the project, and it like combines it, and it does like its magic, and then it'll like turn it into the web page or a website. And so like on an ongoing basis, whenever we develop a new filter for the site, we just add a new line into the spreadsheet, and then we push the changes up to GitHub, and it automatically will show up live on the site itself. So that's just kind of like a very kind of small or brief idea of like how Jekyll works with GitHub pages. Okay, so the end result of all of this, the fitting room platform, is that while we started out with a very sort of like, I don't want to say maybe narrow idea or fixed idea, what was originally the poster campaign, we instead have something that's way more flexible. And so now the platform can be accessed by smartphone, desktop or laptop, and you can trigger it by QR code or URL. And so, which is all great. And it still like leaves us like the opportunity when we go back to campus this fall that we could still like do our poster campaign, you know, and do that and still have the website too, which is wonderful. And then on top of that, when we developed it this way, like tying it back into the exhibition, the Max Meyer exhibition that Karen was talking about at the first part of the presentation, it was incredibly easy to just like take all this content that we had developed and just like dump it into the exhibition itself. So that was like really great because like originally, while we were sort of developing the fitting room idea, it was like sort of distinct from this exhibition, but we knew we wanted to like link it together some way, but we didn't really know how that was going to work. But when we eventually arrived at the end, it was kind of very straightforward and easy to do. So yeah, that wraps up my portion of the presentation, and I'm going to pass it back to Miyo. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. All right, so I checked a minute ago, and I didn't see any new selfies. Yeah, but you guys can see some of the outreach and marketing potential here. If you have a hashtag, you can sort of collect all the experiences that people want to share from an AR exhibition like this. So next steps. As was mentioned earlier, Joseph and I had an article came out at the beginning of the year in Online Searcher magazine. It's actually, there's a free preview of it if you want to read it. We talk a little bit more about some stuff we didn't talk about here, like marketing results. Other things that we're working on, we're also expanding our AR filters to other platforms. So for example, Facebook and Instagram have a software development kit called Spark AR, which is free. So if you're not interested, if you can't afford Zappar, but you want to explore AR, you might want to look into Spark AR, which also has the advantage of being on the Instagram and Facebook interfaces. We also did a workshop for students in April where we basically showed them how we created our face filters in Zappar and showed them how to create it on their own. So yeah, we had a couple students and faculty who attended who hopefully, were then able to apply it to maybe future projects or future business ideas. So here are links if anyone wants to screenshot those. Fitting Room is at the top. The Spark Digital Online Special Collections portal is next, and then the Meyer Beller exhibit. And then again, yeah, if you guys are interested in trying this out in your own library, you can DIY the DIY links. The first one is a Zappar tutorial for face filters. And I didn't put the Zappar URL, sorry about that, but I think it's probably just like zappar.com. And you can sign up for a free 30-day trial if you want to kind of play around with it a little bit. And then after that is Joseph's GitHub link to the code for his project. So yes, we are Karen, Miyo, and Joseph. That's our contact information if you want to reach out. But other than that, thank you guys very much for attending. And I will go ahead and open the floor up for questions.
Thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation on such an interesting topic. We have one question already in the chat from Jillian Gale. She says, how much programming or coding experience did you have before this project?
I'm not sure if you're talking about the AR part or the GitHub part, the platform, but I can just go ahead and answer for myself. I've taken some programming classes, but I don't do it for work, so I wouldn't say that I'm advanced. You don't really need to know any programming or coding in order to use Zappar or Zappar Studio. The only part that I used any coding for was to make the camera button disappear when you take the picture. So if I had decided not to include that feature, I wouldn't have needed to know any at all. And to be honest, that part was kind of copy and paste from an online forum where somebody was developing like a similar button. So yeah, I would say you probably don't need any to develop the AR part. Joseph, do you want to answer about the GitHub website part?
I had a large background in coding before then, and I would say that there are some entry-level workshops online. You can, if you just Google GitHub pages tutorial, you can find them. Actually getting a GitHub page off the ground, it's probably it could take you 2 weeks if you're starting from scratch, I would imagine. But I did have a lot of background, and we've used GitHub pages for other projects at the library. Again, GitHub pages is, I imagine a lot of people are in this situation because SUNY is sort of, it's wonderful, but it's sort of bureaucratic in its nature. So getting a server for a web project usually involves all this red tape, understandably for a lot of reasons. But so if you just want to launch a web page tomorrow, GitHub pages is the way to do it. You just do it, you sign up, and it's click a button and it's live. And so I highly recommend it as a sort of a tool. But I mean, so if you wanted to, you need as much skills as you want the page to have. So if you wanted to do all this fancy stuff, you kind of have to have some background in coding, but you don't necessarily for everything. But yes.
Just a reminder, if you want to speak your question aloud, please raise your hand and I'll see you and unmute you. I guess while we wait, I'll ask a question myself. I know you mentioned the concerns about racial sensitivity with the makeup portion of the filter. Do you find that Zappar's face tracking technology is more or less successful depending on skin tone? Because that's a criticism that you read a lot about these kinds of facial recognition and tracking things.
Yeah, that's a good point. We talk about that a little bit in our article. I definitely made a point to test it on several different skin tones. And I will say that because it was a pandemic and I had to develop it in my house, I mostly did it using just pictures of celebrities on the internet, but it is something that we thought about and we tested for. And I'm happy to say that I didn't notice any issues with skin tones, or even hair volume was another concern. Also, like body size is another issue. Like I realize not everybody has the same size or proportion of face. So sometimes I would test something on myself and it would look great. And then I ask people I know or people in the library to test it and it didn't really work. Just they have a different shape face or different size face. So that was another concern when we were developing the app. So I would say like testing often and across, as many different body types and skin tones is really, really important.
Okay, thank you.
And then another thing that came up, which was like one of these funny things, was I think we had already launched the fitting room itself, and then someone in the library said something about there's like no male representation. Remember that, like
Yeah,
because it was like
yeah.
all the sketches are for like women, and which is the case because a lot of fashion from the time period we were looking at is for women, that we had to like go back and add a few like male sketches.
Of menswear.
Yeah, menswear. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Other questions? Miyo and Joseph, anything that you thought of that wasn't part of the presentation that you wanted to add now that there's 15 minutes left? If you have anything else you want to chat about?
I did forget to mention something now that I think about it. Karen talked a little bit about 3D. And so that's kind of the next step that I'm thinking about taking the filters to. So as you can see, most of the filters are developed using 2D elements. It's just like Photoshop sketches. I think the next thing we want to do is 3D, which is a little bit more complicated because I don't have 3D animation or drawing background. And also 3D tends to be a little bit more complicated in terms of like file types. Also, it's a bigger file size. But that is kind of the next thing that we want to explore. I think Karen's starting to look into 3D scanning technology. One of the issues, again, is, none of us are really on campus, and the 3D scanner is a physical thing. The clothes have to be physically scanned. So I think we're sort of waiting for the pandemic to subside and for us to come back on campus to pursue that. But yeah, so 3D filters are kind of the next thing that we're looking into. And Zappar does support that.
I would just add, and one thing, like a takeaway from this whole experience is that like even before Miyo was sort of came up with this hat filter idea for AR, we in the library had been wanting to do like an AR kind of thing for like years, and we had done a few projects, and a lot of them like didn't really get off the ground or weren't successful. And then I even had a conversation with someone in the museum at FIT about AR, and she was kind of lamenting how like, everyone wants to do AR, but then like it never kind of like takes off. And this experience really was like you just have to have this sort of like simple idea. It can't be like too complicated because it gets in the way of the user experience. And so like that's just like another, and Miyo was talking about like keeping the interface simple, but just like the idea itself has to be simple for it to work, because you're really asking, it's funny, but you're really asking a lot for a user to like take 10 seconds out of their day to do this thing. They don't want to like spend a lot of time doing that kind of stuff. But so, yeah.
Okay, last call for questions, either by raising your hand or dropping it in the chat. While you were talking, I had my phone out and I was, of course, trying it out. And I was really impressed with how quickly and well it worked the first time. I always expect, my first engagement with a new technology to be glitchy, and it was really smooth. And I already sent a picture to a friend. So,
oh, great.
Melissa, I was going to say the same thing. I just tried it out too, and I posted it on my Twitter, and I put one on Instagram too. It's super easy and it was fun.
Oh, great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Should we try the, oh, it's not coming up in the hashtag. Oh, you posted it privately?
Yeah, I just put it on my own Instagram.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Cool. Well, thank you guys for trying it out.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
That's what we like to hear. It was fun.
Here, I'll show you real quick what it looks like.
Nice.
There I am.
That's one of my favorite hats. I'm not
In my
sure
living
why.
room in a fancy outfit. It is cute. It's really cute.
One of the fun things about this project was like all the like sort of projects I worked on before, I would like share them with friends, and this was the first one my friends I think actually like looked at, and one of my friends like said his daughter tried it and she like loved it, and I was like, that was the best like feedback I'd ever received in my entire career as a, you know, a librarian. So
I know. I just said my daughter was walking by. She's 17, and she saw the drawings. It was the part where the drawings were up, and she kind of stopped and looked at them. And I said, "Oh, we can try later the filter, you know, where you try on the stuff." So she'll probably be trying it out later.
Cool.
I wonder, is the next step making this work for our pets? We'll be all over that.
I haven't tried it on my cat. That's an interesting idea. I've
Mm.
tried it on my 3-year-old daughter. She also really enjoys face filter technology. Yeah, I will say it was pretty easy to get friends and family to help us out by testing it. They were like very, very happy to send screenshots. I think some of them were sitting at home kind of bored and housebound.
Yeah. Well, and people, like you said, people know how to use on Snapchat. Everybody knows how to use those Snapchat filters. It's the same type of thing. You just, you know, take your picture and it puts it on.
We also like tested fitting room a lot with like our parents and grandparents. We wanted to see if like people could use it, like, because one of the things Joseph and I talked about was like, how much explanatory text do we have to have? Like,
Right.
is it obvious that you click on the buttons? And we were pretty happy that people seemed to know what to do pretty quickly.
Yeah. And it'd probably be fun too for older generations that like that was, I mean, I'm not saying those ones from the 20s so much, but you know, the fashion from different times that they could look at and try it on virtually. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, we would like to, yeah, I don't know if it's possible, but the idea of like finding something in the sketch, but then finding the real world equivalent of like that, you know, and kind of put them side by side, like find like the actual hat that was made from that sketch somewhere, and
oh wow,
that would be cool.
That would be
like, right?
really neat.
So like
Yeah,
3D scan that.
If you explore the Meyer Beller exhibit, they do something similar where they find clothes and dresses that have like the same time period and the same kind of structure or details or silhouette, but it's never the exact item. That is really, really hard. But yeah, that would be cool. We should put a call out, Joseph, like if any collection has like the original item, the original clothing item, like please get in touch with us.
Yeah.
All right, it looks like we have finished the Q&A. So I just want to thank you again. This was a really outstanding talk, super interesting, and I look forward to reading your article.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to everyone who attended today.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming out on a beautiful day and holiday. And yes, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.